war draft toward 22 is here. People, it's time to win again.
This is the time for us to draft until we draft. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions.
Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day? While our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers?
Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort? While our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the home front?
Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communication equipment to maximize their efforts?
Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics?
Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices and drafting big while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy?
On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through the fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country?
Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical, intelligence and other special operations across the national territory?
As we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Amazonia die as a wish, because we failed to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting a great people.
The war draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depend on that.
It is Award 22. Let us draft until we drop. We're still in the draft season, and it is a season we give back to back what we believe in. Last week was Boyo, today is Lebelem. Massive successes have been recorded so far. Today will not be different. This we know for sure, but before we join the link for the draft, let's give you some of the highlights. That is our major news stories from the week. I am Oni Okbala, and StarSmart is here as always.
Thank you so much, Oni. And remember, we are using today's show as a compensation for Tuesday's show with SOS Dr. Martin Mungwa, PhD, F.ASCE, that was missed due to some challenges that we encountered. Because of these challenges, we are back today, sound and stronger. So please sit back as we give you the recap, and right after that, we will have the SOS for IT and communications.
The Amber War Draft Award 22 is here. People, it's time to win again.
This is the time for us to draft until we draft. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions.
Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day? While our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers?
Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort while our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the home front?
Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communication equipment to maximize their efforts?
Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics?
Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices and drafting big, while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy?
On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through the fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country?
Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical, intelligence and other special operations across the national territory?
As we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Amazonia die as a wish, because we failed to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting a great people.
The World Draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depends on that.
It is Award 22. Let us draft until we drop.
Welcome back. After the groundbreaking jamboree, the Mezam County resounding great launch successive drafts have been only equal to themselves from the queue in Manu County to Boyo County through the ABC Amber TV drafts. This engagement is visible signs that from the Atlantic to the Savannah via the Midlands, Ambazonians from all the 13 counties and the 61 local government areas are all hands on deck to regain their freedom. We are just coming out of the Boyo County war draft of over the weekend, which added another plus, a gigantic sum of over 40,000 US dollars in the Liberation War envelope.
Today is another draft day, like I mentioned earlier, but then it's another time to remind you the importance of draft. President Samuel Ikome-Sako has emphasized that drafting is not just a civic responsibility, but every bona fide Ambazonians must or should participate in. Just a gentle reminder that drafting changes you from a stakeholder to an actor. He said last week that everyone is a stakeholder, but it is the actors that will liberate Ambazonians. The draft is also our taking of humanitarian support to our wounded warriors, the sick, and those in need in this phase of our struggles. He emphasized that we are the miracle makers Ambazonians need to triumph. Now let's take a look at that speech.
Drafting today is not just a civic responsibility that every bona fide Southern Cameroonian should participate in. It is what enlists us on the team of active liberators and civilian auxiliaries to our valiant Ambazonian restoration forces. Drafting changes you from a stakeholder to an actor, if you know what that means. Everyone is a stakeholder, but it is the actors that will liberate Ambazonia against a ruthless genocide. The draft is also our token of humanitarian support to our wounded warriors, the sick, the hungry, and suffering people devastated by this senseless war. There's no doubt now where our people rely for leadership in this liberation struggle. The 30 days lockdown called by the enemy contractors, masking as liberators among us, has clarified any iota of doubt that our people may have still harbored concerning what we already knew. How can we say it is the long arm of coincidence that an unprecedented and meaningless month-long lockdown is declared by some pseudo-revolutionaries who are noted for nothing more than kidnapping, ransom collection, and targeting of our genuine Ambazonian restoration forces? At the very moment that Yaoundé genocidal regime is doubling down on their failed strategy of massacring our innocent civilians and placing guns on their bodies. And just days to the start of the purported lockdown, dozens of manipulated fighters convening at the ADF criminal hideout in Batibo are summarily rounded up by their French Cameroon field collaborators. Let's take it a little further by connecting the dots. Was that lockdown, that planned gathering, and the massacre a scheme by Ayabacho and his desperate hirers in La République du Cameroon to create the illusion that La République du Cameroon has succeeded to restore normalcy in Amazonia through the military option, especially as September is approaching? La République du Cameroon wants to buy more time from the impatient international community so they can continue with their refusal to negotiate a political solution to the conflict. Shame on those blue and white traitors who have chosen to trade the destiny of our people for the reward of cowries stained with the blood of our martyrs. Thank you once more, great people in the home front, for listening to your interim government and shattering the diabolic plan by the enemy to impose a lockdown and punish our people as they continue their genocide on us. You have lost a few of our heroes to these brutes, but let me assure you that it will not happen anymore in Boyo County. The choice is ours to uphold his legacy. We have taken the challenge. Let us continue that challenge tonight by drafting generously. Let the 2022 draft for Boyo County commence. Viva the great people of Boyo County, viva the brave Ambazonia Restoration Forces, and viva our beautiful country, the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Thank you.
And now we told you in the course of the news that the former POTUS Donald Trump has said his Florida home was raided by the FBI and that agents broke open a safe in his home. Mr. Trump said in a statement that Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach was occupied by a large group of FBI agents. Monday's research was reportedly connected to an investigation into Mr. Trump's handling of official papers. These are dark times for our nation, Mr. Trump's statement said. Nothing like this has ever happened to a president of the United States before. Oh well, it seems immunity didn't cover him until this point. But again, this is democracy for you.
Of course, we told you about Operation Lavish Storm 3, how it registered victory on the home front for ARFs as No PT and his Unity Warriors got a major setback. Bonafide Ambazonians always take any report given from the home front, especially in the enemy language, with a pinch of salt. Now, this is because more often than not, the colonial military tell lies of killing Amber boys even when they kill civilians. More than once, they have announced killing No pity. This is since 2019. This weekend, the same colonial military are announcing that an offensive launch by No pity and its Unity Warriors was stopped by the colonial soldiers at Oku, where 3 of No pity boys were killed. No pity and many others wounded, with No pity being taken to the Abingo Hospital in Bello Boyo County.
The hardship the people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia keep suffering is increasing as days go by. Though some natural circumstances might increase the plight of a people, is not the case with southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. La République du Cameroon is a calculated move to destroy from the face of the surface the identity of southern Cameroons, have not only destroyed the educational system but have creamed economy activities. The new approach by La République du Cameroon is depriving the people of Ambazonia d'Isile. This liquid gold is now not just scarce, causing vehicles owners with diesel engines to station their vehicles and transporting frustrating. How will transporters do to feed their families and all the mouths that depend on them if fuel becomes this scarce, as is the case? Given that it is just barely a month left for schools to resume, how will parents be able to send their children to school if this continues?
Well, while we're still talking about that, we also told you about car owners in Bamenda, how car owners are struggling to crisscrossing the town searching for gasoline, as the numbers of those in need of the product outnumbers the quality available. Now, given that state corporations and companies can absorb some of the working population in the Midland region of Ambazonia are not available, the people are therefore engaging in some entrepreneurial activities for survival. One of the leading industries that the working population of Ambazonians are involved in is the manufacturing and commercialization of coffins and caskets. One thing is obvious about this industry, and that thing is that a person has to die for business to flourish. Now, one might be tempted to affirm that the wish of those involved in this business is for many people to die and keep dying. Whatever the case may be, it is appointed unto man to die. Death, therefore, is similarly the end of each and every living person today. Certainly, this industry in coffins and caskets is bound to flourish with the wanton killing going on in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia in general as a result of the ongoing war of separation. While declaring such a war an appropriate approach to tackling the worries of southern Cameroonians by colonial President Paul Biya. Anyways, the living will and must always strive for survival, even if it has to do with manufacturing and commercializing coffins and caskets.
That being one of the things we talked about this week. The next was the nature of roads in the city of Bamenda. We also talked about roads in Bamenda, how they are not to be desired at all. The roads are highly depriving road users from enjoying the comfort of their cars with numerous potholes and trenches dividing the roads. A 5 minutes drive before is now made 30 minutes, the same distance as a result of the bad nature of the roads. The roads were manageable until the house slave city mayor Paul Achombong started scabbing the parties of tar on the roads with information that soon as the roads will be tarred. It was an information southern Cameroonians believed, especially when they saw houses beside the roads being demolished, as the city mayor assured that the new road will be expanded to 33 meters. They seem to have forgotten that nothing good can ever come out of the Biya government. After the demolition, it is about 2 years now, and work is still yet to start, and when the work will eventually start is still not known. What have people of Ambazonia done to deserve such a treatment from the colonial La République du Cameroon regime, that a good road is denied them, a basic necessity? Is it that the colonial authorities don't have any empathy or sympathy on the people under their jurisdiction? It is not yet time for the people of Ambazonia to have autonomy on the development of Ambaland. Is it not yet time? Let's see the present state of the roads in the city of Bamenda. The roads stretch from Howdy Road to the T Junction.
You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned.
No, not fish point.
Continue, no stop. I don't take a make plenty.
Well, I'll take the stop. I come. I'm coming. Now, Mama, boy, you know me. Oh, yeah, cool.
I say, Mom, said I say, I have to take me. Don't send a bill. Take picture of go get that more.
You want?
All the water is they make sure they pick up all the water is
Hey, and I don't give me work. Hey, no.
Then send our phone so we put our family into it.
Mas tem answer. Fine.
You are tired.
So terrible, the kind of roads our brothers and sisters has to be on a regular basis. Now we also told you about the huge theft that has occurred from 1990. Now, in the 1990s, the then vibrant opposition political party, the Social Democratic Front, SDF, cried aloud that there was high level of theft, embezzlement of public funds. The incumbent Paul Biya himself retorted and asked, where are the evidences? Now, in such lackluster response, Biya endorsed public stealing. Then it escalated to alarming proportions. Since La Republic du Cameroon knows nothing about accountability and follow-up, revelation shows shocking amounts these fellows have siphoned from government coffers and saved in their private bank account. Well, for the records of this particular news, we have the first person who is leading, and he is Atangana Kwena, who has stolen a total sum of 200 billion francs CFA. We should give the second position to Mbebe Ngo with 196 billion francs CFA. Well, he is immediately followed by Ubo Mfegu, who has stolen a total sum of 118 billion francs CFA. We have others on the list, but these are the first three topping the list of should we call them
embezzlers?
Embezzlers.
It's no wonder why La Republic du Cameroon has been tagged a failed state. Well, in the course of the news this week, we told you General Sagon and his valiant ARFs have welcomed the newly appointed Colonial La Republic du Cameroon's General Buba Debekrio in a big way, actually. The ARFs of Mungwa Tuesday, August 9th, 2022, taught a bitter lesson to the enemy forces of La Republic du Cameroon by crushing them in a fierce confrontation. Field reports say scores of the colonial military, about 40, were killed, armored cars destroyed, hospital wards filled with the enemy forces as helicopters were seen hovering the Mungwa skies for rescue. Sent to Ambazonia to crack down on the resistance by liberation forces seeking for their independence, Colonial La Republic du Cameroon General Buba first went into a friendly encounter with his La Republic du Cameroon ally, the ADF in Batibo, to blindfold the world that his mission has started on the good footing. But this fateful Tuesday in Mungwa County, an unimpeachable source within the Biya military has said that their situation is so terrible and their military may turn their guns against their bosses. But this is just the beginning of the interim government Lava Storm 3 Fire for Fire operation.
Alright, we also told you that a suspected member of a gang that has been terrorizing the inhabitants of Bamenda County in Nkwame and beyond has been beaten to death at Mbelem, a neighborhood in that county, Midland region of Amazonia. Reports say there were 3 in number when the population stormed their hideout as they were in a deep slumber. The door was first opened and the 3 boys pulled out. One managed to escape while 2 were not that fortunate. One could not withstand the severe pain he got from the pounding and had to give up the ghost. The other was rescued by colonial security forces, while one managed to break away from the mob. Latest reports say the unresponsive body of the young man that was lying around Firewood Junction at Mile 6 Unquaim has been retrieved by family members. Mobile phones, computers and other items were discovered in their keeping. It is not clear if they were in possession of any weapon or not.
Well, that said, also, we talked about the state of roads in Ambazonia as another killer after the colonial military and epidemics. The colonial city mayor Paul Achombong has completely missed out as road maintenance is concerned. Not only do people waste a lot of time navigating through potholes, the rate at which vehicles get spoiled is alarming, and the number of road accidents increases at a precipitated rate. Some of these accidents could have been avoided if not due to the bad roads. Is the colonial authorities' refusal to maintain city roads not a calculated attempt to cripple an already limping economy, paralyzed by the war declared on southern Cameroon? We've been asking this question.
All right, and of course, we will continue to ask until we get answers. The last story for today is the fact that a birth certificate, which is supposed to be a legal proof of identity, has become very cumbersome for Ambazonians to get. Now, this legal proof of identity can help protect children from violence, abuse, and of course, exploitation. Without a birth certificate, children are unable to prove their age, which puts them at a much higher risk. The house slave of the so-called Northwest Regional Chief of the Nigeria Bureau of Civil Status, known in its French acronym as BUNEC, that's B-U-N-E-C, Levi Fongen-Neba, says the current socio-political crisis ravaging the two Anglophone regions of the Cameroon is a reason, while close to 60,320 pupils are without birth certificates in the region. The colonial BUNEC, boss for the Midland region, reviewed the statistics on Wednesday, the 10th of August 2022, during the 11th African Day of Decentralization and Local Development and the 5th African Day of Civil Status Registration in Bamenda. 60,360 pupils are schooling without a birth certificate. Now, this situation is really disturbing, and this is due to the fact that most of them fled their homes because of insecurity. Many have described the process of obtaining a civil status documented, especially birth certificates in the region, as cumbersome. Alright, this is where we end the recap for today. Just in case you are joining us, we have been able to go through all of the major stories that we gave you during the week. We have 2 new stories for you this week, and I'm sure that you are ready for our new story. Alright, so let's just take new stories for you before we bring you the SOS for IT and communication. Alright, so for there to be communication, the receiver should be able to understand the message sent out by the sender. Therefore, effective communication has a lot more to do with language. Those are the different ends of communication. Chat must have no language difference. For example, as we are communicating, you can understand me effectively because this is the language you can understand, right? Now, to get people more confused, talk to them in a language that is not theirs. It is all waste of time and resources struggling to communicate to a people in another language foreign to them. This is a truth that the colonial regime of the La République du Cameroon is stubborn to accepting this particular standard. Why appoint a non-English colonial authority over the people of southern Cameroon, Ambazonia? Now, I almost forgot. It is the putting in place of the assimilation agenda of the colonial ruler Paul Biya of southern Cameroon's Amazonia. For the English language and identity of the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia to be preserved, separating from the colonial regime of La République du Cameroon is imperative.
Indeed, that is very imperative. Well, now the full details of this is that in the Midland region of southern Cameroon, they are still to come to terms with the appointment of a new colonial governor who can't express himself in English, the only language they do understand. Basilekin George Magloire is the new colonial governor to the Midland region. He was appointed by the colonial ruler of La République du Cameroon in the person of Paul Biya on July 2022, and the embarrassment came on Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. The football club Option Sports, a club based in Bamenda, were at the colonial governor's office to present the recent trophy. This club emerged winner of the Under-17 Football Championship. Upon the presentation of the trophy, the colonial governor Basilekin George Magloire was unable to address these young southern Cameroonians. He could not speak English nor even Pidgin English. To break the silence, this colonial administrator addressed the young southern Cameroonians in the colonial French language. The reaction from the players was evident that they never understood anything from what he said. Prior to this appointment as SG to the colonial governor's office, he was the colonial subdivisional officer of the Bamenda Tree County.
All right, we have a video for you there that would want to see from the young ones who represented in the football. Alright, of course, and right about now we have the last story here. Now the southern Cameroon's Amazonia of Mungwa County in Mamfe are paying for the sins they never committed. Now, these people are not the ones responsible with the planning of the town, but are ones suffering with the consequences of poor town planning. We have a video here that would want you to see.
I don't see what I'm finding. Go quick, ready, come on.
The people of Mamfe and locality of Bania got up today, Friday, August 12, 2022, to see their surroundings flooded. This flood is a result of prolonged downpour that lasted the whole night. Though the flood is accused to prolonged rainfall, the real cause is poor town planning system. The colonial authorities in charge with the planning of the town have failed in their responsibilities. There is no drainage system put in place to channel running water out. With rains, the town is flooded with devastating consequences. People are trapped in their homes and can only leave their homes with the help of boats. Crops and farms have been destroyed and household materials damaged. This flood is just coming to add the plight of the people who are barely surviving with hikes in the price of basic commodities. Well, like we told you earlier, we have the SOS for IT and Communications, Dr. Martin Mungwa, PhD, F.ASCE, with us here this evening.
All right, but to do justice to that, let's have our news director, Mr. Ta Party King, welcome the SOS properly.
Good evening, ladies. Thank you for me. I want to believe that my sound is clear enough. Fellow Amazonians and gentlemen, good evening. Today is Saturday, 13th of August 2022. Like we said earlier on with the news, you heard the ladies actually would have to use tonight's program as a compensation because on Tuesday we really missed out. Liberation War that comes up every Tuesday is a very important program that every Amazonian is looking up to. It's a time when Amazonians are refocused, they are re-educated, where strategic information is given in policy form. And the very important reason why you must always listen to Mungwa when he speaks is because he's talking from different dimensions. He talks from the layman perspective, he talks from the intellectual perspective, and then he simplifies it in the most extraordinary possible so that it can deliver to you in the most digestive form ever. And without wasting any time, the SOS being with us and behind the stage in his office, actually enjoying the news recap we have. I would like us to transition right immediately into his office. Right after that, we'll take some questions and we would also open the phone lines so that you can call in before the BLM's draft.
Global greetings to all Amazonians. Welcome to our belated program this week, August the 13th, 2022. As I said last week, today's topic is a renewed call to arms. Dear Amazonians, I think for the first time, I will try to give this speech for Pidgin English. And I think you'll be very good so that everybody understand what we talk. Dear Amazonians, when I welcome to our weekly discussion. For start, I want for award a 21 gun salute to brave and valiant Amazonian Restoration Forces. We salute Wana. We commend Wana for your continued bravery against the occupying forces that are hunting, attacking, and killing our innocent people. We salute Wana for defending our homeland under extremely difficult circumstances in a war where we not be invited, we not be starting, and war that they be declared on us by the bloody words of a dictator in a VIP lounge at an airport. Decision and announced in that careless parade to hunt and then kill our people. Here for the United States, any announcement for military action by government, it will be done solemnly by the President of the United States in the most solemn inside White House, and after consulting elected representatives. For that or infamous day, the world will witness Mr. Bia speaking in an airport lounge and then war on our innocent people because they will simply march with hands, asking they never get any debate for parliament, and they never get any consultation with the Senate of Cameroon. You bet, say Mr. BRP even be consult the French ambassador for Yaoundé, who in fact be the vice president of Cameroon under the powers where it be granted to the foreigner absent. To the foreigner absent approval by the sovereign people of Cameroon through the 1961 Military Cooperation Accord. Under that accord for December 1959, it will also grant Yaoundé by France for force us into a failed federation. France, it get the audacity for tax all the exports from our country by 80%. It means say For everything when they export them from Amazonia, they 50%. Now they don't lower them to 50%. This one now open thief man. This one is something way to hide them. Now open thievery in itself, and there's sufficient reason for we for rise up against this international banditry when they call and say money corporation. You feel the ask yourself why I think today, because we already know. We must continue for remind ourselves with the defend ourselves, and the only act now recognition for the full integration for Cameroon. This now you bring war. To when the war, when France fight them, because they fight them through Cameroon when they call and say a vassal state. Now state where all your powers they be owned by a different country. And they fight against sovereign people of Amazonia. The behavior where France does show it be unexpected and fall short of high standards expected of a member of the United Nations Security Council. Because we not expect say country where they member for Security Council, you do the kind of way France did one for Amazonia. Yes, when I agree with me, say if the people then break inside your house, the least way you'll do and I say you will confront them. You'll push them back for regain your home. But if at the moment where you just stop for push them out, you know what will happen. Not only they will kill you and your family, but they will wipe out every evidence will prove say that they do the thing. They will burn your house and they'll make sure they try to wipe out every crime. Dear Amazonians, we did bravely push back this brutal regime where it will attack the country. After they declare war on us, we know say the only outcome will be acceptable na complete and total victory. And for make sure say the international community recognize our independence. The brave people of Amazonia will not fight for victory. The Amazonian people, they demand victory. The Amazonian people, they be determined, saying they will win this war to ensure that we get full independence and international recognition. I must also remind Amazonians, we be people under the UN Charter. This one means say the right for self-government and gainful development in peace with international community is negotiable. This right it be sovereign and it be natural. Like other people, they don't suffer the kind of thing where we suffer. We know them. People for East Timor, people for Eritrea, people for South Sudan. They don't always know. Say the challenges that when they get them, it be very difficult. They be know. Say forget full sovereignty bigger than the sophisticated weapon where the enemy get them. So full victory will be on very soon. This occupying force, La Republique, they will fail. We give another one, they will fail, and I'll be very serious for telling another one. So this was discussion, it comes for the number 2 part. Our actions then we give for no say it is speak louder than words. During the last week, we will be get a draft. We will see how we county they become plenty, or we will come out of Port County. I want to take this opportunity for thank everybody where they become for give support for our valiant restoration forces. The town hall address where Mr. President began, Dr. Samuel A. Komisako, he emphasized the very important point saying where we get for try for make sure say we internalize, we put time for ourselves, we remember all the time. If we talk a means of we ask ourselves, wait till when they will remember we for the time where we're not there alive. When we think about that, this one is a simple question where each ambassador get to ask himself. Say, ask yourself, how they will remember you when this war will pass and they will come back for peace. When you sit down for ambassador, when I free ambassador, you ask yourself, what do we do for make sure say we get complete and total independence? We, for the interim government, we invite ambassadors for think about all the money we will use them for develop our villages. We get jangi groups, we get cultural groups, where every month we should don't put all that money, send them for Ambazonia. But at the same time, we don't realize and say, the same La Republique, they don't go to destroy all these structures, all this infrastructure, where we send all that money for fixing. So it brings we to a solemn point, say, what to be more important now? Now we try for fight for regain our land before we start put all for development. Or you want to take money for go put up for development where La Republique will can destroy. We don't say it happen with villages. It don't be destroyed. More than 700 villages don't be destroyed. Even the hospitals, the way we build them with on sweat, La Republique don't come burn them down. So now time this way, all these Njangi groups, all these cultural groups, they will not give a think. Say, what it be the priority now? Now, for make sure say we liberate our country and then go back for continue this development, or you want for continue the pound money for a country where tomorrow La Republique will come destroy. So we get for remember, we get for put with priorities then. We get for support our humanitarian efforts for rescue our refugees. We get for make sure say our homeland be free first before we start thinking about what else to do. This one be very, very important. It be very, very important. And I want for make you know say IG believe say when we prioritize our contribution to support our refugees, free our homeland, restore our independence, where France petit fam, with the advance of Great Britain through the Note Verbal of 1961, now the only time we will get everlasting development for Ambazonia. So may God bless Ambazonia, long live Ambazonia, short live the War of Independence from France and Cameroon. Over to you, Paddy.
Yeah, that was quite instrumental. That one may be a fine talk we will hear from the Secretary of State for Communications and IT. Umami then will prepare the way the day for home front. Like I tell you, the Secretary of State, they always bring them for the simplest form, the most digestive form. We, as you hear them, we it go enter your skin well. And I think say this talk na better talk. So I'm communicating to you watching in the diaspora for the purpose of the international community. This write-up will be published on ABC website right after this broadcast so that you can get and will be published abroad so that you can get details of what it is. So now we have to start this discussion right away. I would like the ladies in the studio to take the first sets of the questions, and I will come in right after with it. I believe they had this statement on Tuesday, and they will take the first set of questions, and I'll come right after them. Let's get into the studios, please.
Okay, Dr. Mungwa, good evening once again. The theme for last week, this week rather, Tuesday, it was in regards to a renewed call for arms, and you talked a little bit about it. I don't know if you have any other thing to say in that regards to expatiate a little bit more, because there are some questions that will be coming from that light. Would like you to expatiate a little more in regards to a renewed call for arms.
Thank you, lady. I think last week I did mention that it's actually it's a dovetail from what the Vice President talked about a week or so earlier, that when we talk about a renewed call to arms, it's not just about not only funding the draft, following the restoration forces through the draft, is actually an individual approach to fighting this war. And what does that mean? We believe that we've come at a point, given the fact that we are all fighting, it's an existential war, we are all fighting to survive, and we have the right, has the right as a sovereign people to defend ourselves as individuals, which means if you don't believe that, or if you are not in agreement with funding the, the restoration forces through the normal draft, I think we will suggest that you have to arm yourselves. You have relatives overseas or anywhere who can help you, or even if you have the means, you should be able to buy a weapon. You should be able to buy a weapon, and we advise you that when you buy probably several, you have to store them away from where you live, because very likely these terrorists will come to attack you in your home. And obviously, the first thing you do is, if you are alerted that they are coming, you have to dash out of your home and you go straight to where your weapon is so that you can defend yourself. If we do that, and if all communities in Amazonia can actually bear arms to make sure that if they are attacked individually or collectively, they can defend themselves, I can assure you that this war will be short lived. So that's the added piece of information. I just want to bring it to the attention of the Amazonian people.
Okay. Okay, so in that regard, self-defense, you mentioned even on Tuesday that it is very important, like you said, else the war could come to your doorstep and you would be, you know, armless, and you could just be the next victim. So in regards to self-defense, you stated something that is way, way more important, that the whole idea of a renewed call to yeah. You said something in regards to individual approach to end the war. I believe it's not just about getting arms. There are also some other things that you might have thought through before, you know, getting to come up with the idea of individual approach to end the war. What might those be? Tell us, please.
Well, I mean, when I mean an individual approach, it's very clear. We understand that. I mean, we depend solely on the restoration forces to defend our villages or our towns and so on and so forth. And I think they're aptly stretched. So if communities can actually arm themselves, they can actually form groups, almost like vigilante groups, to make sure that they are not attacked by La Republic soldiers. Or, I mean, as individuals, they should be able to acquire the weapons that will defend them or defend their families. It is that simple. And I believe that some of the details that will come out will be developed by the self-defense group, so that we can give specific prescription or description as to what needs to be done. But I think the overall message here is that every Amazonian should look for ways to be armed. It is very critical at this time. We all must be armed, because that's the only way we can ward off the attack or the necessary attack that is coming to us from La Republic terrorists.
Okay, so Dr. Mungwa, you're saying basically the whole idea of individual approach to end the war is basically about everyone arming themselves, basically self-defense. I was thinking there was some other lights in the regard of approaches to end the war, or it's basically armed. From what you're saying, that's what it is.
Oh, well, that is just a tiny aspect of it. Of course, there's obviously the diplomatic aspect. We are not saying that it is only through self-defense, through arming every Amazonian that is going to end the war. No, absolutely not. We have the diplomatic approach. If you've been listening to or attending the town hall meetings, handled by the Team Act, you realize that we have a very strong diplomatic arm that is working towards the same objective. It's a multi-pronged approach to stop this war. Not a single approach is sufficient. We have to look at all possible dimensions to make sure that this war comes to an end as soon as possible. That's what the message is. It's not just entirely dependent on self-defense or just arming the population. Now, is a multi-pronged approach, and there are others that we can't even talk about them until they get to fruition. So there are many aspects or many facets of this war, or many facets to stop the war.
Okay, okay. So I see it's multifaceted, the idea of ending the war or approaches to end the war, where I believe our news director has a lot more to say to you and to ask. So we'll just hand over to him now.
I was enjoying what you ladies were doing, and I didn't think you were going to end your question session so soon. But then, since you've handed the baton, I will graciously take it. Be ready to take it back any minute from now. There's a lot we have actually discussed on the past days with the SOS, and I'd like to follow up. I appreciate the dimension that Star wanted you to talk about. I like to find out when it comes to this arming individual, I would say every household getting to have themselves protected, like the vice president suggested. What is the framework? We understand the Abba Peace Plan gets us together with our communities. And we're talking about the BLM today that has been a major target and a major stronghold. Why it was a stronghold? It was a target for Cameroon. It was a stronghold for Amazonia. It was a target for Cameroon. We understand that is based on the insensitivity of a few that has cost the life of the great Field Marshal of Libya. Now, what's the framework? I would like you to include all of these as you respond to it. What is the framework the interim government is putting in place aside from the Amber Peace Plan to make sure that they can get to handle these things appropriately and to get our people properly equipped? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. That's that question is a mouthful. Now, you have to understand the concept of the Amber Peace Plan. The Amber Peace Plan is based on a federated system, which means that you have independent units that operate a little independent within a federation, and that is actually the strength of our system. Just imagine that the entire Amazonia was under one leadership, under one administrative body, under one military structure. It would have crumbled a long time ago. And therefore, the idea of breaking our system into units, these units are the different counties. From counties, we'll have LGAs. From LGAs, now we'll break them further to families and individuals. It follows the same pattern, which means the more the units we have, the more how do I put it, redundancy we have in that system, and the more and better it can survive under threat. That is the basis of it. So if all our counties are fully armed, if within the counties the AGS are independently armed, and within an LGA you have families or quarters, individual armed and probably form themselves in groups that they can recognize each other, you realize that it will be very difficult to penetrate. Now, as to the mechanism to arm these people, this is something that is separate. But as time goes on, when we recognize the fact that communities are fully armed, then we can give the instructions on how to coordinate that structure so that they can better protect themselves. So this is a step-by-step process. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. But at least the message is very clear that we are breaking down to several units in order to bring in redundancy and stability within our system, so that no matter what angle you attack us, you are going to have a rapid response. So if little communities or villages or set of quarters or neighborhoods are armed, I think they will better defend. They'll better defend themselves. So that is the basis. That's the framework. That's the way we look at it. So it all starts. It's all part of the Amber Peace Plan, but we've broken it down to the very fundamental, which is communities or families or groups of families, and so on and so forth. So that is the thinking behind. And we've seen that work in many parts of the world, especially in the United States in their war of independence. So this is not something that is foreign. It has worked. He has provided stability. He has also provided independence. So I believe that if we continue in this light, we are going to cut down on deaths, and the enemy will realize that you can't just walk into Amberland and think that you will find people who are not ready to defend themselves. I think that's the message. Over to you.
I must say that you've made it to look so simple, but I know you are, as an achiever, can also enhance it. And from a scientific perspective, you want the people to cue into that energy. But we're living in a day of cruelty. People have lived and relived cruelty from the colonial officials that are still penetrating our secret places. You are saying that a people that have been disarmed for decades should aggressively go out to rearm themselves. And that it is logical in international law. But you know, the civil law system or the Franco-Cameroon hegemony in our land. Now, what is your backup plan? How do you protect the people as they get out aggressively to make sure that they can arm themselves as prescribed by international laws?
You have to understand, I think there's a certain misconception here. We have always been people who carry arms for a variety of reasons. My father had about 3 weapons. So bearing arms is not foreign to our culture. In fact, when La Republique realized that we may actually defend ourselves, they started banning people in Amazonia from keeping weapons. Keeping weapons has been our tradition all across Amazonia. So I don't understand the logic of educating them to bear arms. They have always borne arms. I started using a firearm when I was still when I was in college.
The Chakavum,
So
you
this
mean?
is, yeah, well, arms are arms. We may improve to something modern, but it is not on. Just like in modern societies, technology improves and you get a better version of what you had. So bearing
Yeah,
arms
my
is
concern, my concern, Dr. Mungwa, is this improved. We know the Chakavum, even when it comes to the Amazonian Liberation War, is outdated. I'm talking about having the vice president was outright. He spoke about every household having an AK-47, which is what the Frenchman calls, or the administration calls, interdit. In Bamenda, we had people like Jack Stye coming close to, they never even had the AK-47s, but you would have to go through a lot of things to have the license to even own such level weapons. They permitted us to get the den guns that we used to do hunting because they knew it was not going to confront them. Now,
we cannot be talking
once
about
what
license.
you're saying, Secretary Mungwa, is that the people will work at variance with colonial laws, and we are talking about aggression. I want to know that backup for these people if they cue into this energy.
I need to get some clarification from you in terms of backup. What sort of backup are you referring to?
I'm asking, we have a colonial system that is aggressive. As we speak,
right.
Even the armless people are being slaughtered on a daily basis. Now, for them even getting a weapon that is not authorized by their so-called, because they need to give you an authorization to even own a weapon that is not a chakavum. I hear even now they don't want people to have the dead guns. Now, when these people go outright to get it,
I understand. Yeah. Did we get authorization to start arming ourselves? This is ridiculous. We can't eat our cake and have it. Why should we be asking authorization from the colonial administration for weapons? We are arming ourselves to defend ourselves. To me, it's totally. I mean, you just made the point. Because we're not armed, we're slaughtered like animals. And they will just keep on complaining and say, oh, give me a license so that I can get arms so that you should not kill me. That's ridiculous. We have to do everything possible in our power to acquire these arms. We have various versions of AK-47. 47. I don't think we all have to get it. But at times, a weapon with a single bullet may save your life. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's not like you expect the colonial administration to say, oh, you all have the right to get yourself AK-47. That's ridiculous. We have to do everything possible. We have local locksmiths. We have the local technology to provide something that can save you. And we have to do everything possible. It's not going to happen overnight, but I know that people who already have them. So they have to learn to defend themselves. We can't all sit there and complain that, oh, they come and slaughter us, and yet there is a slight possibility that we can actually have the arms and defend ourselves. That's all I'm saying. Let those terrorists, when they come into our homes in 2, 3, and they realize that they are surprised with a weapon and they are knocked down, they have to think twice before they show up. That's what I'm saying. And I've made it very clear that you don't even have to hide your weapon in your home. You have to have a secret place where you can easily access. So when people are coming, or these terrorists are coming to your home, you dash out of your home and you go for them. And definitely you have a vantage point to deal with them, as opposed to just sitting there and hoping that they probably shoot and miss. That's what I'm trying to say here.
That's quite amazing there, Ambazonians. You're listening to the spokesman of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, outrightly queuing into the energy of the Secretary of the Vice President, Eric Atte, with the man with the sweetest baritone in Ambazonia. We are going to be getting into the BLM draft, and this discussion, I would say pre-discussion, is quite important. You've heard him. Whatever it takes for you to stay alive. The Secretary of State is saying that we do not need authorization from anyone to stay alive. These are crucial times. We've got to use proportionate measures as a people to stay alive. Thank you very much, Dr. Mungwa, for that. Now we're going into the BLM. You just highlighted earlier on success we had in Boyo. You heard ladies bringing to us a resume of the president's address to the nation on Saturday. We are hoping, and everyone is looking up to the president addressing the nation this evening. Very important. I am putting on black today because I am not happy that we will have a person like Field Marshal, the king. That's someone I admired for his bravery at the time when he decided he was going to stand and pick up arms for his people. But as we know, he has been manipulated by someone who is egoistic and short-sighted. We just don't want to talk about it, but there's no way we have to avoid it. Because Field Marshal, the king of BLM, passed away. I'm talking about Oliver. Passed away like a rat. That is a general of the American army that defected because he was poorly advised. Before his defection, just 2 months, in the month of February, the president of the Federal Republic of Amazonia sent him 6 million CFA for his upkeep. And this is a man, when even his county rejected him, the president took responsibility to rehabilitate him and provide him optimum sustenance. Today we have him no more. It is cruelty for any Amazonian to think that we can rejoice that after investing so much on a general or a field marshal, we will lose him like a rat. He was picked up. There was no resistance. There was no guard. Why? Because he didn't have responsibilities. The same Koopas who are trying to manipulate other fighters cannot take care of them, like we've seen the president has taken care of. Before I get into the question sections that are leading us to tonight's draft with the Secretary of State for Communication, I want you to speak a little bit on this SAT saga, including Isubu. There are many of them that have been wasted because of this insensitivity. Speak to us, Dr. Mungwa.
over the past couple of months, we've come to the realization that a lot of our fighters were manipulated by other groups working as contractors for La République. And I think it is very compatible recently. Uh, Fayaba and his cabal have been overtly working. You remember the investigation carried out by, I think, an American lady. Is it Miss Buckley? It was very clear if you listen to that presentation, which actually took place on ABC, that there's a two-way of arms between B and AGOFC or ADF. This was done by an independent investigator. If we had heeded to the advice of this lady or to the information that was given by that lady, we should have known, or we should have taken precaution in terms of our soldiers moving away from the ADF. She said it very clearly that it's a two-way exchange of arms. The exchange of arms between the B and ADF, and an exchange of arms between those who surrender under the ADF, and the guns are collected and given back to B. That message is very clear and came to the point where when they were gathered somewhere in a hideout in Batibo, La Republic came and destroyed these fellows, killed them, and collected their supposed, the weapons that they supposedly gave to them. So at this point, it's a matter of lessons learned. Whenever you carry out a struggle like this, there are points where you have to stop, set milestones, conduct a lessons learned, so that moving forward, we better approach in order to address the issues ahead. We have now come to a milestone. We've now realized, and I believe that most of, if not all of ARFs, know the danger working for the ADF, because they are playing into the hands of La Republic. And that's exactly where Field Marshal the King found himself. He was caught up in a tribal relationship because he felt that Chris Anu could only tell him the truth. And this is exactly what I have been talking about, that you listen to the facts, you have an open mind, and you take the right decision. He did not. He fell for it, and that led to his death. But there's a silver lining, because when you see what happened in Libya, and when they installed the so-called colonial divisional officer, not a single BLMite showed up. That is a silver lining. This means that in their silence, Ambazonia heard their voice. Libya is with the interim government, and we are all going to work together to have an independent Ambazonia. The people who stayed back, which I think was 100% of the BLMites, has given a signal. That is a signal that they've given to the interim government that they hear us, they are on our side. So I take this occasion to encourage every Ambazonian to come to this draft this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you are, to draft to support our fellow county, Libya. So that is the message I have. We have collected enough data from the past to demonstrate exactly who the real enemy in the house is. There is no iota of doubt at this point that the ADF is La République du Cameroon. These are contractors. And from the message that was transmitted to the BA headquarters, it was very clear that it said they were working with their partners. And who is that partner? That partner is ADF. These people have killed our fellow countrymen in exchange for money. This will be a problem to be solved at a later date. But today, we have to seek independence and settle and put in the institutions that will be able to look into the actions of these people so that they can be brought to justice at a future date. So that's my message to Ambazonians. Over to you, Paddy.
I like the way you're talking and the fact that the interim government is taking responsibility to ensure stability in Libya. And I think there's still much to be done. Later this evening, before the address by the president, we hope to have some members of the county take some questions. How are they struggling, or what are they putting together to make sure that this county gets back to its footing? We've seen the colonial administration in their propaganda style purportedly insinuating that people are getting back into Libya and that everything is getting normal, which is not strange to us because that is what um, ADF wanted some months ago, sometime last year. They wanted normalcy in Libya. So it's a handiwork of what they are actually doing. But the interim government that wants the total freedom of Amazonia definitely will not tolerate that. Before we get again into Libya full scale, so that you talk to us as the spokesman for this interim government, we cannot just put a wavering eye on what General Sagon is doing in your place of birth. You are a son from Goke Tunja. You were born in Goke Tunja. Sagon is somebody that speaks the same vernacular like you would speak. No Pity speaks the same vernacular that you would speak. And that's so far the hottest place getting into Bui. The stretch from Goki Tunja into Bui happens to be the hottest in Amazonia. This is quite important. How do you feel knowing that your younger brothers are taking responsibility to free homeland? And of course, the other day, General Sagon disappeared at least 15 colonial forces. That's just what he does. Like every month, he's doing something really beautiful. And they are trying to neutralize him without success. How do you feel about that?
The ARFs are a pride to Amazonia. And I'm very emotional when I think about um, when I was a youth and living in Goketunjia. And when I cast back and see the boys and girls at that time, and I can imagine myself, maybe, if I wasn't born that long ago, I probably would be among them fighting to liberate our homeland. The spirit of camaraderie and the readiness to fight an invader is not foreign to Goketunjia. One of the reasons that people don't even know is that being a low-lying area has always been an attraction for invaders. So we've always warded off invaders in the past. My father told me stories where that's why he was armed. He was always armed because he knew that from time to time they were invaded. So that tradition has been part of our history. Now, coming to what happened recently in Goketunjia, I cannot be any prouder than any other Amazonian for what General Sagon did. It is very, very, it creates that balance, because I remember a week earlier, Mr. Ngute went out in his normal theatrical style to talk about peace has come back to Amazonia. And I think we've all known John Ngute to be a man of theater. I think the only thing that was missing to make it complete was that he should have worn a costume and come with his troops so that they know that it is all theater and there's nothing factual about it. I wish he can come out and tell us what happened in Gokutunja and what's the implication to the so-called peace coming back to Ambazonia. I think that's so shameful. We are as strong as ever. Our soldiers are even much stronger today and far more experienced because of all the lessons learned of the past. So we are very confident that with the spirit that Gokutunja and Sagon's men have shown, we are going to pull these people out of our homeland. There is no doubt about that. And if any terrorist thinks that you can walk from Bunda all the way to Bui across Gokutunja and believe that you're going to come back alive, then you are really mistaken, because you come in as a, I don't know what, as a thug, and you come back as a Boblo rap. And maybe I think that's the new word we should be giving their soldiers when they're demolished by our own soldiers. They go back as Boblo rap, because that, I think that's the language that they understand. If you tell them that you are going to come back as a Boblo rap, they probably think twice before setting their foot on Amazonia. And as one of them clearly said in an audio or video before he was taken out, he said he doesn't know what he's doing in this satanic place. How can it be satanic when you declare war against us? You are the Satan coming into heaven. And since you are not too comfortable with people who believe in justice, who believe in democracy, then you obviously think it's satanic, because in your country, there is no justice. You do as you want. You have a country that has a public debt of more than 400 billion francs CFA, and the top 10 bulos can actually, they have bank accounts more than 400 billion. So how much mathematics do you need to prove that all the money that has been brought to that country was siphoned by these individuals? And nobody's saying anything. It's unbelievable. In any case, they know what they expect. They will come back as Boblo Rap. Maybe that should be a new menu to the troops, so that they know exactly what they look like when we would have sent them to Ekemelan. Over to you.
Yeah, the president of the Federal Republic of Amazonia exceptionally has sent out an extraordinary message prior to the draft of this evening to encourage Amazonians to do it like never before. We've seen the ambience with Amazonian Bobo and other activists. I'm talking about genuine activists, not activists, working collaboratively to make sure that tonight is different, is a never heard in Lebialem. What is the strategic significance of this national call to draft for Lebialem like no other county?
We have seen the turbulence that Libialem has undergone in the past half a year or so, due to the actions of Chris Anu and company. We have seen the bravery of Libielemites fighting against the actions of Chris Anu or Paul Tasson and others. This is a moment we really have to come to their aid to tell them that we've been watching. I will draft for Libielem, okay? At least I'll have to do something about that. So it is very important. When people have singularly fought for their own independence with nobody assisting them in a situation where some of them probably would have lost their lives, because people were calling me, sending me text message from BLM assuring me that they are with the interim government. And they warned me that if that message ever leaked out, Chris Anu is going to kill them. I draft for LBLM. And that's why every other ambassador has to draft for LBLM. This is a people I personally admire for them.
Can you hear me?
Pardon?
Dr. Mungwa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can.
You are saying, you just said something which we cannot rush on it. You are saying that you have received calls from denizens in Lebialem County, actually saying if the information they provide to you is made public, it might jeopardize. Am I correct?
Yes, yes. For the past months, ever since the coup plotters started playing the game they were
And the
playing,
name they highlighted
was
is Chris Arnold. The name they highlighted is Chris Arnold.
yes, they identified, they said specifically, if Chris Arnold is aware of this, they'll be killed. In fact, in some of the meetings where these people were part of, they actually brought us strategic information and sent to me. And these people are so honorable because they took, in fact, some had to pay their draft. They did not want anybody to know about it.
So you're saying because of these concerns of this man who is making himself a warlord,
Right.
they would rather do their draft through a third party.
Correct. In fact, one particular case, the
Right.
person had already, I don't want to give the gender because that may
Yeah,
endanger a lot
go
of
ahead,
people.
please.
Yes,
Yeah.
that person had already drafted for $500, and they were scared if how they were going to draft again, because if it came to the knowledge of Chris Ano that person was drafting for the interim government, that would probably be the end of their lives. So they came through me, and I gave them advice on what to do. And they gave me audio messages. They sent me text messages advising me on everything that Chris Ano was doing. They were looking and they were watching and they were giving me an update. So I had a complete update we shared with the president. So that took place in the BLM, fully aware. And we know the people, those who were, which I can think is a substantial number. I don't want to put a number on this. They were against it. And you can see very clearly that even when the colonial governor, minister, whatever, went there to install the divisional officer, nobody showed up. That is a referendum on the coup plotters. It proves that whatever they did was not acceptable to the people. And that is out there for everybody to see. And therefore, on the strength of that argument, I strongly encourage everyone to come out and draft for LiBLM, because LiBLM is Ambazonia and we support LiBLM. Over to you.
Amazonians, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard for yourself the technicalities involved when it comes to having every Amazonian draft in the county of LiBLM. You've heard for yourself a man who resurfaced in 2016, took the opportunity of the struggle to create for himself a platform, has suddenly become a tyrant of his own people because he wants to impose an ideology to them. This man, out of his own insensitive behavior, has cost the life of his own brother. He's a man who thinks only himself and about himself. It is quite embarrassing that we will have to be losing a major field marshal, or do you want to call an army general, in a war time like this. If you notice, when every life is important, all the restoration of lives are important, but in a war, it is a big blow to lose a person like Field Marshal. I understand he had defected, but you cannot be any sensible as an Amazonian and you're comfortable. And if you're angry, if you're vexed in your spirit, like I am vexed right, if you are vexed like the president is vexed right now, it is time for us to draft and to draft and to draft really very big. Dr. Mungwa, I'm going to ask you, I know it was not easy Saturday. You were about driving and I said you have to come. I'm going to ask you this very vital. We know Blebialem, Ngokitunja, Bui. It's strategic for us to draft for this because they're fighting. I'm not saying the other countries are not fighting. It's strategic too. Because the draft is not about tribalism, and nobody should reduce it. We understand some people have misunderstood the importance of the draft, and they would rather just draft for their counties, even if it's not for a collective good for the nation. The BLM draft is important. Without any point of exaggeration, the county organigram or structure is facing huge challenges. I wish I had Mijo, Resource Mobilization Secretary of State, to talk to us on this, but I'm going to have him in the next 2 hours. Talk to us, sir. What, from all of this plan of mobilizing resources, what is the federal government doing to ensure that there is administrative coherence and stability in Libya?
Thank you. I think after we've come out of what just happened to the field marshal of the BLM, and having followed very, very closely the events that led to his demise and eventual death, I think it gives us a very clear roadmap as to what we can do. We have come to understand that this war is not about tribal affiliation. We have come to understand that the person that you have to support doesn't have to be the person who speaks the same dialect with you. We have come to understand that leadership goes beyond tribal affiliation. It goes beyond even your educational background. Leadership is something that it is so powerful that it is also not only powerful but transparent, that will address everybody based on the facts that we have. We bring together Ambazonians of goodwill. We bring together Ambazonians that have a common purpose. We bring together Ambazonians who understand that the future of us is probably far more important than the future of us, or our future, because we know what the future may look like if we don't make a change in history today. And that applies to every county, whether you take a child from the BLM or you take a child from Fako, you take a child from Buing, Okutunja, Momo, it is the same. And therefore, it is only the name that changes, but the need and what the future should look like is identical, be it the BLM, be it Fako, be it Indian. So when you come to that realization, you realize that aligning yourself to some tribal accolade, whatever, tribal group, and what La Republique really wants us to behave like. I mean, that's the sort of behavior that they want us to fall to. So they say, oh, this is your so-called countryman. Therefore, if this is your countryman, everything it says is correct. We have sufficient proof that that's been the cause of our demise, or the demise of some of our soldiers. We must stay away from that. So in as much as I may not agree with Chris Ano, it doesn't mean that I will not support BLM. The BLM is good at home to me as Ngokutunja. So I'm coming to the BLM to be with the people who've been working with me to gain independence. These are the people I'm supporting. And these people are the majority, I believe, because I have seen it. When the colonial SDO was being installed, I didn't see a single person from the BLM showing up. What does that mean? They don't agree with that colonial administration. And by implication, it means that they are with the restoration of Ambazonia, and therefore they are with the interim government. And that's why everybody should welcome the BLM in their arms today. We should all go out like one family to support a member who is in need. to support a member who is in crisis. This is what it's all about. I remember even last year during the Ngokitunja draft, there were people from Libelium who drafted from Ngokitunja. And that all the time. There were people from Fako County who drafted from Ngokitunja. This is the only way to defend our country. We must have layers of redundancy in the way we support each other, which means that in Ngokitunja, I will be supported by people from Momo, people from Bui, people from Boyo. That is the layer of redundancy that you have in the system to ensure that we are all one people. So in as much as Ambazonia is split into counties for convenience so that we can defend ourselves, but when it comes to specific areas, we all have to come together and defend and support them. So that's the message I have for today's draft. And that's the message I have for Ambazonians. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Mungwa. Thank you, fellow Amazonians who were glued on their screens and watching the home front, watching in the diaspora, watching on all our different platforms. Thank you. I think we've come to the end of this segment. Before I hand over the mic to the ladies to conclude this program, I want to say thank you for creating this time. I called you, you were about driving out of your home because this was not actually our main appointment. And because of your love for nation, you make it possible. I hope I'll be able to have the Secretary of State for Resource Mobilization in the next 2 hours. I'm also hoping that I'll be able to have the Vice President, because this is important. The President, in his statement earlier on, has proven that this draft for tonight is very instrumental. We are going to end the program with the ladies now.
I wanted to add one more thing.
Yeah, and you're going to give a last statement. Yes, you give a last statement. We'll end the program, but we'll be back in 2 hours' time. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
So there's something I made in my speech regarding cultural groups in the United States and elsewhere. There are situations where when they have their monthly Njangi, they can contribute up to $100,000 for development efforts back home. That is a great, great spirit, and I hope that it continues. But I want to suggest that just take a second or a minute to think about the concept. We are all putting all this money to pour into development back home that may be eventually destroyed by La Republic. I think we should have a new spirit in our Njangi, in the sense that when we put together this money, we should think about sending 5 to 10% to the restoration forces so that we can defend the land that you will send this money for development projects. This is very vital. I know that it is not possible for me to legislate that everybody has to contribute to that draft. But just think about it for a moment. When you lose a person, when the body goes back home, these are the same people who try to call the restoration forces to give them some sort of protection. Why wouldn't you think at this moment that whenever you have your monthly Njangi or whatever, if you can make $5,000, $10,000, why not just give 10% to the restoration forces so that they can defend the same want to come and build and eventually live? I think this is just a logical extension of this effort. Support our communities back home so that we can defend ourselves, so that you will come back to a safe country. Imagine if all that money you contribute and you build back home and you still come back and you have to suffer under the authority of colonial administration. How are you going to feel? You'll be the first to say, oh my goodness, I'm going back to America. Let us just think. Let us be objective. Let us think about the consequences. Please, I'm really appealing all those groups. When you have your monthly Njangi, do something. Think about the rest. Do something about it. Have someone connect with the internet so that you have can be channeled to our online soldiers. Thank you. Over to you, Paddy.
you
so much, Dr.
very much,
Martin.
Secretary. Thank you very much. Just I know you. I wouldn't take more than 1 minute. So another strategy again has just come in from the Secretary of State for Communications and IT, and I think it's a mandate for every Amazonian belonging to a community to visit your cultural groups, sensitize them, mobilize them, get them subscribed, get them engaged, and let's get back into a free homeland. Thank you very much, ladies. The mic is all yours, and I must say it's a good night for me.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ta. And of course, we sincerely appreciate you, Dr. Martin Mungwa. We thank you for making another opportunity to be with us today. I mean, it's not very easy. You were here on Tuesday, we had technical issues, and you came back today, even gave more time than we even expected. We sincerely appreciate you. Thank you for sensitizing. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for motivating everyone to get ready for the draft today. I mean, in your words, you said, let's all be objective and let's all try to fund the ARFs. It's for our own good. It's for our own benefits. It's for the future. I mean, our names will be written in the sands of time if we do this adequately and with a beautiful and a clear heart. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin Mungwa, for the expose this evening. Star, you have something to say?
You're welcome.
All right, fellow Ambazonians, remember to get ready for the draft proper this evening. Undaunted will be back by 8 p.m. and I'm sure that you'll be ready to have all of the exclusive interviews with some of the chairs and local government coordinators from the county that will be drafting this evening. That is Lebelem. I'm sure that you are ready to draft. So get yourself prepared and let's keep the numbers counting. I am Oni Okbaler.
And I am Star Smart. We'll leave you with ABC Amber TV images. Stay tuned and good night.
The Amber World Draft Award 22 is here. People, it's time to win again.
This is the time for us to draft until we draft. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions.
Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day? While our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers?
Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort? While our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the home front?
Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communication equipment to maximize their efforts?
Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics?
Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices and drafting big while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy?
On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through the fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country?
Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical, intelligence and other special operations across the national territory?
As we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Ambazonia die as a wish, because we failed to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting a great people.
The World Draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depend on that.
It is Award 22. Let us draft until we drop.